Are you a creative entrepreneur looking for some no-nonsense, straight-talking, actionable advice? Well, if you are, you're in the right place. Today on the Creative Business TV show, we're talking about how you can deal with knockbacks in your business and the fear of failure. Welcome to the Creative Business TV show, helping you make a success of your creative business. I'm your host, Kylie Carlson, and it's time to kick off your heels, grab yourself a coffee and get ready to be inspired. So today's topic is all about dealing with knockbacks. You know, if you're in business for long enough, you're going to get your fair share of knockbacks. And you know what? It's absolutely fine, because the key to all of this is how you deal with it. Not everything you do is going to work, and call it whatever you want. Failure is failure. It isn't a bad thing. Some people call it lessons learned, some people will refer to it as a mistake they've made, and others will call it a challenge they faced. But the truth of the matter is, you can't be afraid of the word failure, because that right there is part of the problem. Today's lesson is actually a really personal one from an 11-year-old Kylie. And I'm sharing this with you because I really hope it will help you to see failure, knockbacks, mistakes, whatever the hell you want to call it, in a bit of a different light. So for those of you who don't know, which is probably most of you, I started life as a classical musician. Yep, I was that girl in the school playground, clutching my violin with socks up to my knees, a satchel, terrible dress sense, and no clue about anything other than music. But there was one thing I had that none of my classmates did, and that was passion. I started playing violin and piano at the tender age of 5, and I was told by everyone around me how talented I was. I won loads of local competitions, got into the local youth orchestra, and I was lucky enough to be taught by the most respected violin teacher in the area. I had it all going on, or so I thought. But my big dream was to go to the Royal College of Music in South Kensington, opposite the Royal Albert Hall. But I couldn't go till I was 18. Then I found out about the junior department, and you could go there from any time you went to high school. That meant 11 years old. It was held every Saturday during term time, and for me, as I didn't live anywhere near London, it would mean getting up at 5 a.m. and getting my backside on a train by 5:45 to make lessons for 9 a.m. But I didn't care. I wanted it bad. I wanted it real bad. And when I approached my parents about it, they told me that they would look into it, which they did. And they found out that there were scholarships offered to the junior department through the local council. And every year they'd select a few students to have this scholarship. There it was. There was my in. This was my big chance. I agreed with my mum and dad that I would enter. And I worked my butt off for 3 months preparing for this audition. I'd never been more ready. My 3 pieces of music that I had to play for the judging panel had been practiced within an inch of their life, and everyone I played for thought I was ready. Audition day arrived, and I went in at my allotted time and played for the panel. I didn't put a foot wrong. But then they asked me to play some scales. Oh my God! Nobody had told me that they were going to ask for scales. And I never practiced scales. Nobody does, they're boring. Nobody likes scales. Anyway, I did them, but they weren't great. I was told to wait outside whilst they made their decision, and that wait was agonizing. After 20 minutes, I got called back in and received the dreaded news that I hadn't made the cut. Didn't actually know how to react, and everything in me had been geared towards, the answer being yes, not no. Now, there's 2 things I could have done here, and one was to accept the decision, go home, cry my eyes out and tell myself that life as I knew it was basically over. The other was to do what I did. So instead of thanking them for their time and leaving, I told them they were making a mistake, a big one. Now, why did I do that? Well, at 11 years old, I can tell you it wasn't planned, and it wasn't because I was particularly smart. It was because I wasn't about to give up for anyone. This was my dream. This was something I had been thinking about for as long as I could remember. Now, I messed up and I owned that mistake. I asked the judging panel to let me come back at the end of the day and play more scales for them, if that was the only thing they were failing me on. And guess what? They said yes, and I got my scholarship. So what lessons can we learn from my 11-year-old self? Well, for me, it's that you can't let the fear of failure hold you back. If you fall down, you've got to pick yourself up, dust yourself off and get back on that horse. Or in my case, practice those scales. There is no shame in failure. I've lost count of the number of things I have tried that haven't worked, personally and in business. And if I'd given up each time something went wrong, I'd never have tried half the things that I've tried, and I wouldn't be living the life I'm living now. So I really hope that what I've given you here has given you some food for thought. And yes, now it is your turn. I want to know about your failures and the way that you've dealt with them. How did you get back on the saddle? What did you do? So share your story with the rest of us here. Leave your comments below so that we can all learn and be inspired from each other. That's all I've got time for on the Creative Business TV show for today. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, please subscribe. And if you want to be a little bit more connected, then come across to kyliecarlson.co and get on my mailing list. I will see you next Monday for another episode of the Creative Business TV show.